84% of responders said they favor English as America's language. And here's more progress in the fight to stop Big Brother. We are still holding off passage of the Secure America Through Verification and Enforcement Act, the SAVE Act. This bill is being sold to our people as a get-tough policy on illegal immigration. And now many of you may actually be helping Numbers USA push this dangerous legislation by making phone calls to your congressman urging them to support the SAVE Act. Please learn more about this bad bill. You are being misled and used by some very bad people to help take away your freedoms. In truth, the SAVE Act would give the federal government powerful control over private business it shouldn't have, and would establish more massive data banks for Big Brother. The SAVE Act would create databases on birth certificates and death certificates. Both of these government databases are necessary for compliance to Real ID. The SAVE Act would force private businesses to run all applications for government through a federal data bank, one that is not equipped to handle the massive traffic of every business in the nation accessing it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when a name is tossed out as illegal, no matter the reason, a private, law-abiding citizen then has to take personal time to go to a government agency and try to prove who they are, meanwhile, perhaps losing the job. Yet it would catch very few illegals in its net. This is not how the United States of America is supposed to operate. Americans aren't to be treated guilty until proven innocent. The SAVE Act is really just a companion bill to the Real ID, again, under the guise of getting tough in enforcing laws against illegal immigration and terrorism. Instead, it puts all Americans in a straitjacket using the politics of fear. It was put on a fast track in both the House and the Senate, quickly gathering hordes of co-sponsors from both Republicans and Democrats who hope to use it to make you think they are tough on illegal immigration. That is until they learned the truth about the bill. And that's where the fast track stopped. And I'm very proud to say that it was the American Policy Center that has been the main opposition, and we were able to recruit others to our side to bottle it up where it is today. Fascism is fascism, no matter what you call it or how pleasant you try to make it smell. This bill, too, must end up on the trash heap, and that will be a victory. Now, some say that it's over in Europe as the European Union solidifies its stranglehold on the continent. Really? Well, someone better tell the Irish. Ireland just rejected the European Union's attempt to establish a new EU constitution by voting against the treaty. And this is the third time that there has been a public vote on acceptance of the EU, and the third time that it has been soundly defeated, first by France, then by the Netherlands, and now by the Irish. The EU can't continue to ignore this opposition without facing a revolution. The Irish vote may be the first crack in the coming destruction of the European Union. And here at home, on our own front in fighting the North American Union. Now, you just heard an incredible presentation by Dan Byfield on the amazing progress they and local leaders are having in stopping the Trans-Texas Corridor. And we've heard from Senator Randy Brogdon, who has led an incredible campaign to stop the TTC from crossing Oklahoma's border. And there's more. In September of 2007, the Bush administration began a major project needed to implement the NAU and the TTC. The project was a test to allow Mexican trucks to cross our borders and transport goods through this nation. Immediately, I don't know if you know this, immediately, both houses of Congress passed legislation to block the project and remove any funding for it. Senator Byron Dorgan, a Democrat from North Dakota, got an amendment passed 74-24 to the Transportation Department's appropriations bill to defund the project. It passed and was signed into law by President Bush last December. And yet, Transportation Secretary Mary Peters just decided to ignore the law and do it anyway. So she was recently subjected to a hearing by a hopping mad Senator Dorgan. And the transcript of that hearing is precious. Now there are calls by many, including the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, a new ally we have, by the way, against the North American Union, that Mary Peters be fired. What a message that firing would send to the SPP perpetrators. And it's something that all of us should help bring about. Fire Mary Peters and stop the Mexican truck invasion, and thereby put a major pothole in the center of the Trans-Texas Corridor. Now, these efforts, and those by thousands around the nation, are getting the message out about the North American Union. The perpetrators of this treason did not want the general public to know of their plans. They wanted to operate in secret. But we have blown the whistle on them. We have alerted Americans, and we are throwing a massive monkey wrench into their well-laid plans. And it is having an effect. They started with denials and escalated to calling us names: lunatic fringe, liars, scaremongers. They refused to debate the issue. They refuse to admit it exists. They hide behind a curtain of secrecy. And it's not working. And that fact is having an effect on their plans. There is a feeling of despair growing in the ranks of the SPP. Back in January, Jerry Corsi reported on an article written by a reporter from a Canadian newspaper, the Globe and Mail. The reporter, John Ibbotson, was actually participating in an SPP meeting, presenting a paper, so he was on the inside. He was basically shocked by the attitudes of the participants. Here are the people who seem to have everything under their control, the people you and I fear the most. Yet he found them exhibiting an overwhelming feeling of despair that their well-laid plans for a North American Union were in trouble. Said Ibbotson, quote, "Public exposure has stalled SPP efforts." He concluded by saying that the Security and Prosperity Partnership is, quote, "dead." Now, other SPP leaders, while disagreeing with with him about whether it's dead or not, admit that the public awareness, quote unquote, of the SPP and some of its features will trigger changes. Stuart True, a researcher and writer for the Council of Canadians, wrote, quote, "The opposition in all three countries has exposed the SPP North American integration agenda. Several other attendees to an SPP meeting in Mexico confirmed that public exposure has been a hindrance to the progress of the SPP program." Ibbotson hinted that Bush and Canadian Prime Minister Harper were reluctant to spend any more political capital in the SPP effort. And that was one reason why the SPP meeting in New Orleans this past April was more about public relations than substance. They're trying to regain ground that they've lost to us. Now, I don't believe for a second that this fight is anywhere near over. But I tell you all this because I want you to understand that your fight is having an effect. Notice how many times they use the word exposure. The fact is this: we do not live in a vacuum. Things don't just happen. Just because they want it doesn't make it so. Actions have consequences. Our actions have an effect. For you to believe that all is doomed means that nothing we do counts. None of our articles, none of our speeches, none of our rallies or protests or even this conference mean a thing. We are helpless. And to believe that, and that all is doomed, is to say that our ideas, the ideas of Jefferson, Washington, Franklin, and Madison, aren't strong enough to stand up against the delusional ravings of Marx, Lenin, Hitler, and Maurice Strong. And if that is true, then we may as well